Hello everyone and welcome to Mudlick Creek Garage. In today's video, we are going to be installing the Kemimoto fender flares on my 2017 RZR 900S. So if you've seen my previous video, I have converted this machine over to a 900S and it's significantly better on rough terrain. But the main issue I have, and I know a lot of you are gonna say, well, it's part of riding a side-by-side. Mud goes absolutely everywhere. These 30-inch Maxxis Carnivores stick out about at least 4 to 5 inches past the flares. And in the rear, you have all of this area that literally hurls the mud into the driver's compartment. So let's get the inside of these. I will mention as well, the mud on it now is from driving it across a wet field and then moving it into the garage. I have not hit a single mud pit with this machine since it was detailed. That not only speaks to my climate, but it speaks to how terrible this is at flinging mud. So let's get the underside of these fenders cleaned up and we will be back to install the flares. So in the box, you will receive your instructions, hardware. Now, I do really like how these guys sent black hardware. I know Mudbusters, the original, uses a stainless steel hardware, and I just think that would look a little tacky on the machine. As you'd expect, you get 2 rears. These are made of a pretty durable plastic. I don't think there's gonna be any issue of this busting off trees. And then you get, your 2 fronts. The 2 fronts aren't bent. You're gonna have to bend them yourself. They're creased, of course, but you're gonna have to make them form to fit. So I'm gonna do one side, get the process all down, and we will be back and we will install the driver's side together. All right. So installing these fender flares are pretty easy, but there's a couple tools you're gonna need to do it. So flathead screwdriver, you don't need this, but it's nice to help you force the clips in on the front fenders. 10mm wrench, if you can find one. Mechanics know that. You're gonna use that for the rear ones, the inner nuts. 1/4-inch drill bit and a drill. You're gonna use that for the rear. You're gonna need a 4mm Allen key or bit socket. That's gonna be used for the rear. You're gonna need a Phillips head driver. That's gonna be for the front screws. A clamp. Spring clamps actually work better than welding clamps, and having more is never a bad thing. So at least 1 clamp. Then I use a tape measure to make sure I had the distances the same on either side. So now that we have our tools, let's get to installing the flares. Okay everyone, now it's time to install the driver's side mud flap, front mud flap onto the machine. So here we go. So the first step here is the most simple, and at the same time it can be the most hard. So these 3 nubs down here gotta line up with these 3 holes. So this machine is actually a 900 trail that's been converted to an S. So these nubs down here have never been used. So I like to start, after my experience with the first one, at the bottom and work my way up. When you get up here to the top, use a screwdriver and you just kind of push it in. So there, the bottom is locked in. Your next step is gonna be to come up here and you're gonna wanna get your clamp. You wanna bring it around the back side there and clamp it up tight. Now you're gonna come up here and you're gonna adjust, try to get your body line gaps as close as possible in the front and the rear. Come over to your other side. Look at the amount of stick out you have. Kind of get yourself trued up to the other side. So let me get a tape measure and true myself up, and then we'll be back. All right, so I went through and set my measurement. These top corners are both 3 1/4 inches from the original fender. Now, it's all just putting in screws. So take your standard drill gun with a Phillips bit, and they're gonna recommend you do 2 screws on either side of the single tab. Now, do not run these in super tight because you are just screwing into plastic. And here's the part where I like about the Kemimoto set. With all these black screws, if your screw placing isn't perfect, it doesn't matter nearly as much as it would on the other brands. So you're gonna run 2 by 2 up the flare. And you're just gonna pull it tight. No need to torque on it. And also make sure your screws are ending up inside of the bounds of the outer fender. You don't want to put a screw through here and just have a big gaping hole in your flare, because that would not look pretty. So we're gonna get these last 4 screws here thrown in, and we'll be back. So on this top side, they recommend you put 3 screws in. You're just gonna wanna go through and double check that your measurement still is where you'd like it to be. And then you're gonna put 2 in the back. And you're gonna put 1 in the front. Now you can remove your clamp, and you are done with the front side. Let's move on to the rear. So now we're on to the rear of the machine. So the rear fender uses bolts to attach instead of screws, and they already pre-drilled the holes in your rear section. So first, you're going to take the fender with the clamp, and you're gonna fish it up. Sorry, you're getting kind of a crappy angle here. And you're gonna clamp the fender onto the top. So don't clamp it loose. Now you're gonna come around and you're going to even the crease of the fender up with the front and even the crease along the back. Here is where if you have multiple clamps, you can go through and drill every single one of your holes. But me having 1, I'm gonna get the front perfect, I'm gonna drill the first hole, then we're gonna get the back perfect, drill the second hole, and we're gonna get the very back perfect, drill the third hole, and we'll come through and clean it up with all the holes. Get started here with the first hole. Now, we're gonna take, next we're gonna get the rear aligned exactly where we want it. That's darn near perfect, it'll pull up tight. We're gonna come down here, and we're gonna get our upper hole drilled. Right here. Get our nut, bolt, and washer. And we'll get this guy tightened down. Now we're on to the very back. In my opinion, this one here is the hardest one to get right. and it's because of the rigidity of the plastic. So we will remove our clamp from the front. We'll snake her up and in here. Probably the other way. Clamp it on there to start with. Knocked you guys right out of the way, didn't I? Now we're gonna get this all lined up. Now remember, you're gonna want to try to get the rear of your fender as flat as humanly possible. So then, you can drill your first hole. Again, nut, bolt, washer. Now when you do this back one, you will be pulling the fender flat, so it will take a little bit more force to get this one here in the hole. Might actually want to drive it up and in. Okay, now we're gonna get this face right here trued up, put this last bolt in, drill the hole, put the last bolt in, and we'll come back across the top and clean up all the holes I haven't got to. All right, so the Kemimoto fender flares are all installed, driver and passenger, so they fit nice and good up in the body crease on the front. We come to the back, they fit right along the body crease just fine there. Come out, flatten out, make a good flat mud catcher on the back. I will say they do look a little goofy. Not a big fan of them, but if you'll notice, the tires are completely under the flares, and what I am a big fan of is not getting absolutely coated in mud whenever I ride. So we are gonna see how these do on my ride this weekend, and then I will come back and let you guys know my thoughts in the next video. So if you guys liked what you've seen, please subscribe, hit the like button, and thank you guys for watching Mudlick Creek Garage.